Once again, everybody, welcome to the Media Buyer webinar. If it's your first time here, my name is Brian Baumgartner, Director of Growth here at Northbeam. With us today, we have Ryan Kovach, who's one of our amazing customer support success people. If you've ever been on a call with Ryan, you know he definitely knows his stuff. And it's a pleasure to have him here today. Thanks for joining us, Ryan.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for hosting us, Brian.
Oh yeah, I'm here every week. You can find me here every week. Let's go ahead and get into it. So number one, looking at the media buyer index, CPMs are up across the board. We're going to get into this a little bit, but if you are seeing CPMs up month over month, I know lots of people are starting to wrap their monthly reporting for March now. That's not unheard of, right? We see some movement on some channels that we know to expect, like seeing CPMs up on Meta. It's pretty crazy. I think Meta, given the oversized budget share that it actually has, if you see something like a 2, 3, 4% increase there, that's pretty significant based on the budgets that we see put onto that platform. That's a big shift, right? These double-digit changes you're seeing on things like TikTok and Pinterest, just as relevant, but at much, much smaller budget sizes. So if you're seeing your CPMs up, you are not alone on this. We're going to dig into a little bit as to what's going on there and what's happening. If you got a chance to see the newsletter yesterday, you'll know that based on a lot of the details we have in here, you'll see things like, conversion rates going really well on TikTok. We'll talk a little bit about that later. Facebook is still eating a lot of the budget share. More and more of the budget is pulling away from some of the side platforms and, emerging platforms that we talk about. It's going back into Facebook. If you look at ad budget distribution by industry, we see big lifts in baby. It's that time of year, we were talking about this before the camera turned on, baby showers happening and stuff like that. Purchase percent is up. Also, jewelry's down. I mean, February is a big month for jewelry, Valentine's Day, whether you're treating yourself or someone else. So we expect to see those changes. And we're going to talk a little bit about Performance Max data. We have some Google data here that we didn't have last week that we're going to explore. And then at the end, we're going to get into Q&A. So I'm going to take this back. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about what's happening in terms of ROAS, CPC, and CPM. Ryan, what do you think is going on here in terms of CPM going up? What do people need to know about this?
Yeah, for me, anytime CPMs are kind of going up across the board, right? I still a little bit of this in-between period, right? We're continuing to move towards spring. There's not any big pillars or big waves or any activation themes that are present across all industries, right? It's kind of, we're chugging along, right? So I'm always hopeful folks are hopefully doing a lot of creative testing, offer testing, landing page testing, right? Like the kind of standard ad buying tactics that you can control, so that when the platforms do kind of get in a spot where, hey, we're week over week, we're month over month up on our CPMs, that we can fight that in a couple of ways. So that piece stands out to me for sure. The TikTok piece, that I think they're going to be a little bit variable until, they get themselves out of the news one way or another, right? I think there's some amount of ad budget shifting away from there and opening up pockets, but I think that'll kind of keep yin-yanging, right? Over there, I'm still, let's test creative levers that we can, right? Bring those winners over to places when we can. But it's still effective, right? So I'm definitely not in the camp of like, hey, we should be shifting all our budget away from there, right? There's still the brands that are winning there are still winning, right? They're the only channel above 5% on the media buyer index here. So still worth investigating. But I think kind of the theme for me is I wouldn't get caught overspending right now, right? Like allocate, optimize, maybe a little up, a little down. But if you're, for most folks, not in a peak season, or that these couple months are big for you, right? If you're in swimwear or something, right? That may be the opposite. You may be ramping right on up, right? For a lot of brands, though, as CPMs inch their way up, I just don't want to get caught overspending, right? So that's the first kind of theme that's on my mind.
When you think about overspending, you're talking like wasting, right? Not like having all big budget for testing, but like making sure that you're not wasting too aggressively in those tests, right?
100%, right? It's like anytime I'm scaling, right, I expect my soft metrics or my core metrics, right, you're going to have some level of diminishing returns. But I think that you're going to be up against a tougher wall right now. Because if the market dynamics and the auction are working against you a little bit, your creative and your click-through rate and your offer and your landing pages need to be that much better. So if you're just a brand right now, you're rounding out the month, right? If you've hit your numbers and you're in a good spot, like I'd be thinking about next month, start priming my creative, but I wouldn't be caught overspending and scaling anything that's kind of just been humming along. I'd leave that where it is.
Great insight. Great insight. Let's keep going. Let's talk about specific platforms now as well. I'd love to talk about YouTube and Google here because, we see Google's held pretty standard across like CTR. It's been going up like 1 to 2% every time I've run this media index, right? And it's still a larger share of the budget here. What are you seeing? What are you seeing across Google here? Like, and what are you seeing in client calls? What are people talking about? Is this still working? We'll get into PMAX and stuff later. I can snap over to that, but what's going on Google in your experience?
Yeah, continuing to see a shift towards PMAX, right? I'm continuing to see like some of the. I'm a big fan of like new visit percentage, right? And how much new action are we continuing to send to a website? And Performance Max continues to look pretty good, but for a lot of folks, non-branded, actually looking pretty good, right? So like I know performance can vary, but I'm just keeping my eyes on like, is the traffic we're buying and folks are buying doing the job we want it to? And when costs are going up or performance is going down a little bit, sometimes the pockets can change. So if non-branded's working for you, home run, but I'm generally seeing new visits look pretty decent over there. On the performance side, the guidance we always like to give is like try and pull out the branded search if you can, either via negative keywords or contacting your rep, right? But if we can isolate against the branded search, then over at Northbeam we do a good job of giving you that first time versus returning. And the most successful brands I'm seeing, they're just keeping Performance Max honest, right? They're just making sure that they are actually driving incremental new folks in the door with that, pulling that branded search out. So when I see 42% of the budget, that makes sense to me based on what I'm seeing. And I think most folks are doing those best practices of pull out your branded when you can, get a clean isolation view on the Performance Max as a prospecting vessel, and then make sure you're keeping it honest by sending first time folks. And that's kind of what I'm seeing over there.
Yeah, we linked a great little, not best practices. I hate to say that because every business is so specific, right? But
Right.
we were linking like learnings that other people have seen in the last Media Buyer newsletter. So go over there and take a look. And we talk a lot about PMAX and here at Northbeam. Talk a little bit about you talked about how to actually keep it honest by leveraging first time versus returning data. Where are you looking at in Northbeam for our newbies on the channel? Where are you looking at in Northbeam to see that?
Yeah. So sales page, going into customize on the bottom right hand side, right above the pivot table, and it'll pull up this variety of metrics, right? So within that, we have this granularity on first time versus returning. So not only can you just look right at your ROAS, what's the blended ROAS number, but you can put your first time and your returning ROAS right next to it to see like if something's getting a 1x, right, or a 2x. If something's getting a 2x, but only 40% of the revenue, only a 0.8 is going towards first time folks, that's not something I'm going to be interested in scaling, right? So I always like putting those right next to each other so you can get a nice clean visual. And just PMAX is a little bit of a black box, right? Like can be really powerful, but you just want to make sure you're keeping it honest.
Great stuff. Let's talk about YouTube a little bit. Where's my YouTube at? Let's talk about YouTube because rather than spending this whole chat talking about the TikTok presentation in front of Congress, that whole debacle and like the future of what may happen for TikTok, because our line here is, if it's working, keep spending. It's not banned yet. We've been talking about it since 2020 and it still hasn't happened, right? So if it's working, spend there. People talk a lot about YouTube as one of the places where if TikTok was banned, users might jump over to Shorts. Um, let's talk about how to win on YouTube. I know we have people talking about, oh, okay, Shorts are happening. I think my audience is there. I want to get ahead of the curve there, get good at it before some potential wave of people following influencers eventually moves back over to YouTube. Let's tell me a little bit about, if you're a brand that's maybe run some normal pre-roll ads or whatever, how to try out and succeed at YouTube short ads.
Yeah, on the YouTube short side thing, I still think it's a big content play, right? And it's like my favorite marketing departments that we partner with, they're doing a good job of finding those most engaging parts of their regular videos, right? Their normal 5-minute piece of content, pull out a 15-second chunk of it, run that and test those snippets as shorts, right? Because it's still early days with shorts where you're just not going to be able to just throw anything up and get performance out of it. But if you find the right piece of creative, you can then start to unlock a little bit of a new channel or new folks coming in, right? So the way I view it is all about like, go find your other best assets, try and find the most engaging 15 seconds of that, take a few snippets out, run those as tests. And anytime CPMs are up in general, I'm much more interested in going broad, fight against those auction dynamics by going a bit more broad, less of the similar audiences, less of the lookalikes on the Facebook side of things, open targeting and or interest targeting. And specifically on Google, I'm always a huge fan of the Google AdWords audience insights tool, right? Like pulling that up and doing a list of folks who purchase this specific product, getting the affinity data and all the in-market data. And so I'm doing a couple things. I'm doing the snippet section of it. Then I'm also trying to source new broad audience affinities, try those targeted out. And if you find a snippet that like, oh, this one's all about fishing, right? I'm very much trying that against a fishing demo, right? I still think there's bonus points in the auction when you have that alignment. So it depends on your resources a little bit, but generally speaking, broad interest, go for that target CPA bid type, right? Do your age, sex, location kind of filters on top of it, right? You're kind of generally kind of rounding it in, but don't force it too much. I wouldn't do like a just 28-year-olds, right? I'd do like 22 to 35, that sort of thing. And then test good snippets of other resources you have.
It's just like TikTok. It's one of those ones where it really benefits from having organic. Like you can't just jump on there and like run these ads by themselves. It's like having the organic alongside your ad content. You're gonna feel much more natural in the feed for people. It just makes a lot of sense. Thank you. Let's you know what, we've been talking a lot about Pinterest here recently. They've made so many shifts. They're launching new ad formats. They're adjusting their algorithm. They've quietly, unless you're like us and read about this stuff for fun every day, quietly, they've been under the radar, making tons of changes to their algorithm for advertisers, for media buyers. What's your opinion, looking at Pinterest performance we have this week and what just from working on clients? What's your opinion on Pinterest? How do you win there? What's happening? What do you want to see?
Yeah, Pinterest can be a tough one to unlock, but I'm not running there if I'm just my opinion, right? For every given industry. But if you're in the right industry, right? Like maybe a few competitors are already on there. For some industries, there is alignment there, right? And I think me and Matt spoke on it a little bit a couple weeks ago, but I'm still finding listicles be effective, right? I am seeing some direct product action work. But if your demo fits over there, worth the test. And had another one in there, but the listicles are working well. Kind of the static images. A couple tactics I've seen is like load it up as a video, but then run a few static images just with strong headlines against it. But it's one of those things where worth a test. What I'm looking for on the Northbeam side of things is I want to see some hard click data performance. I know default Pinterest attribution is that 30-30-30 action. And just one of those things where it may very well be working, but maybe it's they're not dealing with multi-touch data, right? So maybe have a little bit more credit that they're allocating to themselves. And the first sign of like a brand unlocking it inside of Northbeam is some hard click conversions, right? You know, there's going to be a longer tail. And that's where if worked with anybody and me and my team, to do some conversion lag or attribution lag against Pinterest can be really interesting because it tends to be a little bit longer of a cycle, if you will, to realize all that revenue. But I don't want to just spend there and get no hard click efficacy, right? If CPCs are $6 and on Northbeam's click only model or similar models, just like a 1-day click or just a 7-day click, if you're not getting anything there, I'm not going all in, right? I want to see some hard click, because if I'm getting that, then it means the direct response ads are working. And then I have something to like a paper trail to like optimize against off of, right? If there's some crumbs, I can see what's working there, what keywords are working, what was it, a static image or was it the news carousel? And you can see and optimize a little bit. I wouldn't just set it and forget it over there.
And that's, I think, the crux of what matters so often for all these other platforms who are trying to kind of have a little bit of meta spend pie, right? Is we're looking for those hard clicks. And to date, we're still waiting to see if any of these other platforms can match just Facebook's incredible conversion rates, right? Like, realistically, we can't just dump all of our spend onto Pinterest, knowing that our audience is there, if we're not seeing any of that click data, any of that hard click data. So like, and when you have those conversations, when you're having them with your account reps, when you're having them with agencies that you're working with, when you're talking to Pinterest, right? Even if your spend is that large and they have someone assigned to you, it's like, this is what I need to see, right? And I'm using Northbeam to do it. We just say it, you know, it's what we're looking for.
Yep. And there's a handful of folks winning, right? But for anybody considering just starting out, I'd be looking at a conservative lens, right? And if you can, if you're starting to see some wins on a conservative lens, not everybody does, right? And so if you do, then it's like, okay, maybe we can crack this nut. And then I'd continue going down that path. But always worth trying out, just because some of the demos align so well, right? We see some of the baby data and some of the pets data, right? Like any of these industries that are in a good seasonal spot right now, worth a test to see.
Speaking of industries, this is a great time to talk about what we've been seeing. So we already sort of touched on this, you know, babies through the roof. It's baby shower season. You know, babies born on the later end of last year are starting to hit up the age where we have to buy new things. Jewelry's down. What else do you see across the board that's interesting to you here?
Yeah, the electronic being up a little bit, right? Pet being up a little bit. Those are ones where, broadly speaking, CPMs are up. We're in a little bit of that in-between season. You want to optimize where you can, start a new wave, refresh your creative where you can. But there's a few industries that are like, hey, this is one of our moments, right? We go into spring and people get back outdoors and we see some of that action. So if you're one of the brands in an industry where we're trending up a little bit, I would very much be testing, like, can I align my messaging with the season, right? Like, there's a handful of ad accounts, maybe they're running their best creative, right? But maybe those were for the last 6 weeks, right? And a refresh right now may capture some extra momentum that's in the air. And so for pets and electronics, getting back outside, very interesting to me. The baby one, 15% is a lot, right? And regardless of kind of the volume, though, there's something about it, right? So like, if I'm a brand sitting in those industries, let me refresh my creative. Maybe I do consider a few different interest targetings, right? Open it up a little bit and see if I can ride that wave.
We always talk about refreshing creative, and it's not just about, you know, it's not just about, oh, we're going to try new hooks, we're going to shake it up, we're going to try and build a new, you know, champion creative that wins it for us. It's also about the in the moment relevancy of it, right? You know, when you're saying, oh, we're going to refresh some creative, we're going to get outside, that, what does that look like? Does that look like, oh, I'm going to have my influencers go outdoors? You know, now we have a beautiful day here in New York City, I'm going to be like, get out in the park now. Like, you know, we have all this, you know, leaves are coming back on the trees sort of thing. Like, is that what you're talking about when we talk about like refreshing creative? What are you thinking?
Yeah, very much so. I'm a big fan of, and there's a lot of people who follow similar principles, right? But like, Are we getting folks' attention? Are we getting depth with them? And are we getting them to take action? Right. And so if we're talking video content, there's metrics you can use to measure, is my ad doing that effectively? And learn from a few folks and see it in the ads. But if you're aligned with the season, right, your messaging sticks out more. You want people to like, comment, and share. So if you're running an ad and you're, it's about going outdoors or it's hiking, and you get folks commenting with them taking their hiking pictures, that's like, the organics are going to love that, right? The algorithm is going to love that stuff. So if you can play into what people are naturally feeling, you tend to get a little bit more action, and you don't just want to shoehorn your messaging, right? But like, I'm always a fan of go read all your reviews and get any ones that are talking about themes that are relevant to what you feel as a normal person for the upcoming month. Build some creative around that. Especially if you're one of the industries trending in the right direction, or if you're an industry where the CPMs and soft metrics have been hurting you a bit and you've just been running evergreen ads. All those things, alignment can get good organic action, and then you're back in the algorithm's favor.
That's the way to do it. I don't think we have any Q&A lined up here. Nope, no Q&A. So that's going to do it for today's Meetup Our webinar session. Thanks everybody for joining. Ryan, thank you for dropping fantastic knowledge bombs on us.